I remember the crisp blue sky, and I know I was still only a part of the way through my Christmas books that I was allowed to read for pleasure on Fridays, and so those weeks would pan out to make it April. One of them books was about a boy on a ship in the wars against Napoleon, for it rubs at my memory, and the other was set hundreds of years in the future, when the world would be better. I liked that one. It was written by a woman, I remember that, and I imagined that my mother would have liked it. It had a utopian view of our country, and my mother was always looking for the best in everything. I'm sorry that I can remember little more about them books, but my memory of that time is clouded when it comes to the pleasing, and too much of it burned black onto me with the other. My father had gotten word of a new invention, the chance of a new venture that needed no capital, and I had never seen him so animated. I did not know, as a child, that the whole land was in depression, and in New York in particular, businesses and people's homes were crumbling under the weight of paper. I had seen protesters in the park, the placards, and heard the cry, the same as it ever is. When I think back, it would seem that in just a few years, what with the pock and the fire, the banks closing and the gangs, that New York had gone to the devil. But I was a boy, and my belly was full, and my aunt had reminded me that there had been some insurance on my mother's life that would see me well, but for the fact that I was drawing into it every time I scraped too much butter, which was her curse of me. I suppose we were also caught in this financial bust, which would cause my father to take to the road, and I also presume that as a businessman, my father paid attention to patents and newspapers, but he shared none of this with me. What I have to tell you now is that in April 1837, we traveled to Paterson, New Jersey, in our gig, my father almost jumping all the way, and my books and my Aunt Mary left behind. My aunt was not happy about my going on the road, although I regularly traveled with my father around New York, probably more as a sympathy for his sales than for my companionship, which was mute at best. But I gathered from their talk that we would not come home for supper this time. "You cannot take him, John." She said this as a fact rather than a plea for my safety. "You'll be gone for months. And what for his schooling?" This was a good reason for me to run. My aunt had wishes to end my homeschooling. She had subscribed to the Common School Assistant, and along with the Christian Spectator and Cobb's Explanatory Arithmetic, this had become her higher learning. She had become enamored of a new model of teaching from Europe. A studious Swiss named Fellenberg had developed an institutional method that mingled poor and wealthy children. His concept being that the poor society would be taught the trades and education needed for their place, and the rich would be taught the arts, literature, and politics of their standing. By seeing the poor at their work, the rich children would appreciate their contribution to the country, and by observing their betters side by side and seeing them learn how to be leaders and intellectuals, the poor would understand the way of things and appreciate that their aspirations were taken care of. I figured I was for the better half of the school, and if that Mr. Fellenberg thought that poor children were apt to admire their betters, he had never seen the Bowery, and I, for one, would have none of that. "What is a boy to do out in the West?" she insisted. This statement was lost on me. Even at 12, I knew that I would have no limit of things to do out beyond the mountains. My own thoughts of danger were less important than having the opportunity to be away from my aunt's lavender chiffon and her yardstick rule, which I never saw measure anything except how much blame my knuckles could take. Besides, we were talking only as far as Illinois and Indiana in those days. I am sure my father had no intention of entering the wilds of Missouri. "Tom is coming," my father said. "I cannot leave him here. I will need him." Against tradition,